MPC London, and we work in the asset department, which handles all the modeling and texturing, a lot of sculpting, concepting as well.
Yeah.
We sit close with the art department, and
Well, you do.
I do.
I'm on another floor.
I'm Klaus. I'm a lead texture artist and modeling artist. And
Yep. I'm Joaquin. I do modeling and texturing. I think we've both been there like 4-something years.
4 years, I think. Yeah.
Worked on quite a lot of shows.
Yeah. I think maybe before we jump into how we use ZBrush and how we model stuff, maybe we should just show the reel.
Yeah, to get a
A bit of an understanding of what we do. So, like I said before, we are from the London department, and MPC is split up into multiple studios. So we have Vancouver office, Montreal office, London office, Bangalore, we have New York, and so on. But most of them, New York, Amsterdam, and Shanghai, they do advertising, and we are then in the film department. So London, what's special about MPC is that other studios might have a modeling and texturing team or an asset department per location, but MPC is solely in London, where we have our support from Bangalore. So most of the creature sculpts, anything ZBrushy, anything design-wise go through London, and then it gets retoppled in Bangalore, and they kind of support us from all the technical side. So mainly London is focusing on design and
the creative
part, basically. Yeah, and I think to talk about a little bit about how ZBrush, we use ZBrush on a daily basis there.
Yeah.
We use it a lot for concepting, displacement sculpting, and kind of like finalizing assets, I think.
Blend shapes.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes.
It's a lot of the times we use ZBrush. A lot of the times maybe a model gets started in ZBrush.
Yeah.
And then we provide Bangalore with a sculpt, and then they do all the technical, so they do the retopo, they do the UVs for us, and then we get that one sent back, and then we would keep working on that one, for instance. I think maybe we should jump into showing a little bit about how, we're going to show two assets today, Godzilla, and then Arnold, the digital Arnold from Terminator Genesis.
Yeah.
I think these are pretty good assets to show how ZBrush fits in a pipeline.
Okay, should we play?
Maybe pull up the...
Let's start with the Godzilla.
Yeah, let's pull up the Godzilla ones. Right click.
So there's no sound to this one, so we'll talk a little bit over it.
So I think we're just going to show you the final shots first, so we can kind of get an idea of what we're going to talk about.
So this is basically what we had to do, create like this giant lizard. And as you can see, he's pretty, like on a big screen, this is pretty full on close up. So that was like one of the main challenges, you know, like all the detail that's in there.
Yeah, I think
there's like even, I don't know if that shot is in it, but there's like this super close up of the foot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's from one of the challenges of this was that when we got briefed this, we had Garrett Edwards, the director, in-house. He had an office at MPC for a little while. Because we're doing the pitch as well before, so he could pitch that to the film studios. And when you get a brief like this so you get, okay, you have to do Godzilla, but how do you do it? How do you sculpt a lizard or a big creature like this who's going to work full screen? You're going to see his foot up full screen. A nail is the size of a car. One of the challenges of this is, of course, you have to sculpt the whole thing. There's basically no hiding.
Yeah, it's probably like one of the most heavy ZBrush sculpting. So like for the Mutos, for example, they're quite smooth, and everything gets a ZBrush pass, but a character like the Mutos, maybe we won't go into that much detail in ZBrush. That comes through texturing. But Godzilla is, we had to sculpt a lot.
Yeah, and one of the challenges was also that I remember the director, he was very, he wanted these Mutos to be fairly smooth next to Godzilla, because the Godzilla had quite a spiky or busy kind of...
it's a different design language.
The kind of different design language from these guys. Yeah. So if we go back a little bit here, that was one of the things that had to work in shot, that you should be able to quickly tell the difference. Can you just full screen it for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be able to quickly tell the difference when they were fighting, that these guys were obviously something else. And I think we had quite a lot of artists working on this one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you are one of them.
Yeah, I did a fair bit of displacement sculpting and texturing.
So we had one lead. We usually have one lead artist per film, or per something. If you have a creature like this, you might have a lead for the creature, and that lead character then dishes out a lot of the work, or he determines how it's going to get modeled, and so on and so on.
So should we start I'm going to bring up what we received from the client, originally, so we always receive, if we don't make our own concepts, we get a concept from the client, and we also got a model that I'll show you.
Yeah, a lot of the times it depends on the budget of the film or who the client is. A lot of the times we might receive a concept, and this time it was actually from Ian Joyner here, who was just presenting before us, who did this drawing here.
Okay, that doesn't really.
And a lot of the times we receive a concept like this, but of course we have to, maybe some parts are not sculpted or some parts are not worked on, so we kind of have to take it to a more final level. This is the concept, right? Yeah. So this was the client concept model we received from the client. Yeah. I believe it was done at Weta Workshop. This
Possibly,
one.
Yeah.
Maybe together
That's
with
the thing. You don't really always know who made the.
Exactly.
I mean, I remember working on a pitch for Full Tilt, and I just saw the ZBrush Summit from last year.
Full Tilt, sorry, is
Guardians of the Galaxy. And I saw the Josh Herman sessions. Like, oh yeah, I recognize that one, but like at the time I didn't know who made it.
So yeah, you can see maybe if you zoom in a bit on the face, we receive a scan like this. In this case here, the director had already approved this, so we can confidently, there's enough information here to start the retopo. So we had a lot of our Bangalore guys, and led by London, of course, retopoing this thing here, and to come back to London for sculpting.
I think there was a tongue in here as well, but we redesigned the mouth area a bit. I can actually show you a daily of that.
Yeah, do you have the daily, the before and after?
Yeah. Why is it opening? That's annoying.
So, like on this one, for instance, that was the thing.
Yeah, so that was sort of how the concept model looked. Well, not really. We started already here adding proper teeth and.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I think is when we receive a lot of this kind of stuff from concept artists, they usually a lot of the times it's done very quick, or they might look at reference and so on, but they might not realize that okay, of course the teeth have to be modeled in properly. So we had to model all the teeth with proper depth going into the gums. We have to, of course, take into consideration all the shaders, all the proper the rigging and all that kind of stuff that comes on top.
Yeah. Basically, the concept model is just to get like the general feel and shape of the whole thing.
So I want to say, by the way, if there's any questions at any point, feel free to ask.
I'm ready.
You're ready.
Okay. Should we move on?
Oh, we got one.
Yeah.
All right.
Microphone. Here we go.
So for Godzilla, more or less ballpark, how many UDIM tiles did you have for the texture, and what resolution were each of the tiles?
It was about 80 UDIMs.
For the body.
For the body, and it was 4K textures.
We started with 8K.
Yeah, we actually started with 8K. At some point, we even killed Mari, so we had to resize. But you couldn't really see the difference. It's yeah.
Yeah, one of the problems of this is, of course, as you know, if we load this guy into ZBrush, we can only subdivide it as many times. I mean, back then maybe, I don't know, 15 million.
Yeah,
at some point
maybe we should say that too.
This
is a couple of years back. It's like I think we worked on this 2013.
Yeah, 2013. So it was before 64-bit or anything like that. And so the UDIMs are laid out. So we got roughly 80 UDIMs. What you do is then we use a lot of the split by polygroup. And then, but there's a generic sculpt pass done on the whole thing first. And then you split by polygroups, and then you start, or you maybe take the arm and you say, okay, the arm, how many subdivisions can you subdivide this one to? We might go. A lot of the times we do tests, so we say you might have a hand, and you say, if I cut it from here, I can maybe maximum get 6 million polygons in this hand, But you say, if I go a little bit further down, and I cut it down here, I can get the whole thing to maybe 15. So you do a lot of calculations like this. And I believe the lead artist on this one, Thomas, he had a script in Maya for doing this. So basically he could select the UDIMs, and it would automatically calculate how many times we could subdivide it in ZBrush.
Yeah. Basically, you want to subdivide the whole model evenly, the same amount of subdivisions, but
Yes.
you want to get the maximum resolution from each chunk. So it's not every UDIM. It's like a couple of UDIMs. I'll show you some tools later. Anyway, should we talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, I pull up now.
Yeah.
It's so basically we might take the hand or the foot or whatever, and it's very important, of course, to have everything subdivided to the exact same amount. So you can't have one arm that's 12 million or 15 million, and then it goes into the shoulder blade, and the shoulder blade is only 5 or something like that. That's not going to work, because in the final displacement, everything has to be seamless. So when it comes across the screen, full screen, IMAX, 4K resolution, it needs to hold up to that resolution.
Yeah. Anyway, after getting the concept model and doing the changes to the mouth and everything, we always do a texture, almost always do a texture mock-up.
Which is like a conceptual.
Yeah.
We take the model and do a few render passes.
This
Could
is
be
at the
key
same
shots
time
or-
like gathering references, and then you do the texture mock-up, just so everybody's on the same page for what we're trying to achieve.
Exactly. We then provide this to the supervisors. The director sees it.
So this is
And
the
you have a kind
final.
of
This is the final texture mock-up, also made by Thomas, who was the lead.
And this is just because he had to resculpt the mouth at this point. So at this point, we had to get that approved. So a lot of the times when you work on something like this, it's not, you don't just sculpt all of Godzilla and then you present at the end and say, this is Godzilla, and now it's done. That's not how it works. So a lot of the times is we might work on a hand, and you sculpt the nails and you present it. And the supervisor, who in this case was Guillaume, who was he won an Oscar for Life of Pi, super guy to work with.
Yeah.
I think one of the best supervisors MPC have. He's a really, really nice guy, and very collaborative, and up to ideas, and this is cool, and we can work on this and that. So you present something like that, and he can then approve it, or if it's something a major change, like these fins that was done. Oh,
If you want to pull this one. What? You want to pull
if
this
you
one
bring,
up
do you have it?
then?
Can I show?
Yeah.
So these fins that were down here were not in the original concept model, so they were added in later. So major design changes like this has to go through the director or the client. So either producers or director or whoever has time to see it, basically, or has the power to sign it off. Something like that. And then you work on it in stages. So you might say, no, okay, so now this is done, boom. So now we can keep going on the head. And then you might have Tamar or somebody who's doing concept modeling or concept sculpting, sculpt on the hand. You present that one, and then that gets approved. You can then move on to the feet or whatever. So the whole thing is dissected into sections, and everything gets presented, or everything gets approved per section, basically.
Yeah. Anyway, references everything. Like, we're trying to match photoreal stuff, so we need to have a lot of references. This is some of the early references, and like stuff like this is great. These are much higher resolution, by the way. But yeah, stuff like this is great, especially when you're sculpting. You see all these little shapes, and this is what we try to achieve, basically.
Here's a Twitter question from Akeem. How many modelers are at MPC London, and what do you look for in applicants for modeling positions?
I mean, the team varies. Like recently we've been working on Jungle Book, which is a massive show. We had, So at a time like that, we grow in size. I don't know the most we've been in London, maybe, I don't know.
I mean, we crew up and we crew down depending on the show. So
we actually had to rent another office in Soho, London, just because we were, so we were basically just modelers and texture artists in that
Yeah.
a whole floor in a different building.
That tends to be a core group of people, core group of senior people that have been there for a long time, who knows the pipeline, who knows everything, how to approach any asset basically. Because we don't just do creatures, we do spaceships, and it can also be a weapon in the background or somebody carrying a shield. Can be anything. But so you need to have a very diverse and very group of people who can do everything basically. And we do have specialists who, some are solely working on hard surface modeling, or some are solely working on creature sculpting, or some have their preferences and their specialties. But I think like size-wise, I think currently we are around 30, 35 people. And what we look for, I guess, is...
In London, we should say.
In London,
because then our Bangalore office, obviously, I think they're a bit larger, are they?
They are.
Yeah.
There's probably 100 guys in London, or in Bangalore. So you got 30 people in London, a couple of juniors, a couple of mid, but most of them are senior and leads. And we then lead everything from there. And a lot of the art, like nowadays, a lot of assets are photographed or photogrammetry or scanned or anything like that is fairly easy to model, because technology, I mean, to be honest, sometimes we even use the set remeasure on background objects or more organic stuff just to get it out quickly. So it's all about speed, and I think our Bangalore office helps a lot with that.
Yeah.
What do we look for? I mean, we look for, of course, you need to model. I think a lot of people
Depends on
get the
what you want
mistake.
to do. If you want to do hard surface modeling, then do a reel. That's awesome with hard surface modeling.
Exactly.
If you want to do organic stuff, then
I also think it depends
focus on that.
A good thing is maybe to go in, you can actually go in on IMDb and look at the studios. You can search for, let's say, MPC, ILM, Weta, or whatever, and you can see what films they're working on. So if you go in and you say, okay, so Weta is going to work on Planet of the Apes, and you're really good at modeling apes and monkeys, then maybe you should apply for it as they're starting to crew up for it. Same as if we're going to start doing whatever new film that comes out, or we're going to start modeling spaceships, or okay, this is a big sci-fi film, because a lot of films are done now, and they're from comic books, or there's not a lot of original stories, right? So you can kind of say that if let's say a new Blade Runner film is going to come out, you kind of know that there's going to be some sort of hard surface or vehicle design or building design. So you should get your portfolio ready and specialize it to that studio you want to apply it. And if you're good, you're going to get in, and maybe you're only going to be there for that film, but that film can maybe take a year, it can take 6 months, depends. But then when you're there, you're going to learn so much, and you're going to start diversifying and learning new skills.
Should we pull up the,
Yeah.
let's see. Oh, again, I keep doing that.
Do you want to just change the default really quick?
Yeah, where do you do that?
Open. Open. Go.
And then change to use the Windows Media Player, open with, and then pick your
Sweet.
And then put all Windows
Apply.
Apply? Okay.
Apply. Yeah, apply.
Super.
Now they're all.
Thank you.
That's a tip and trick for Windows.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do some
Wait.
Microsoft Word, Excel. You never know.
Yeah. We work on Linux, so we don't know Windows. So here's, for instance, a
This
daily
is the
that was done for
supervisor's references, the ones he picked. And, like he, based on the concept, what he wanted initially, it all changes. But yeah, I remember looking a lot on this one. That one is awesome. Like you see this, because Godzilla is supposed to be this like old, ancient creature, and all these little jagged edges and wrinkles and.
So did you guys visit any zoos at
We
all?
did have a texture shoot of crocodile and, or maybe it was a caiman. Either way,
There's
and a turtle.
yeah.
Yeah, like the fins for Godzilla, for example, is based on like turtle shell. See if you
Yeah, I
see
mean,
this.
what happens is at a point like this is, you of course get the concept and you get the initial brief, and then you say, how do you do it, and what do we need to be able to create this? Because we can't just, like, reference is one of the most key parts before starting anything. Like, we have so many supervisors who, or maybe newer artists who come in sometimes and they start sculpting something or modeling something, and they present it. So we have daily sessions with supervisors, and they present it, and the supervisors will always go, "Where's your reference? What are we basing this on?"
This is from the turtle shoot.
Yeah. So I think one of the supervisors went to, there's a place in the UK.
So there's polarized and non-polarized.
Yeah.
But this is, you can see like this stuff. You can, if you look at maybe we'll play the shots again in the end, and you can see the fins are sort of following this type of, yeah.
So that's the thing. A lot of the times, we might get a concept model, and there might be some lines or some hints of design sculpted in there, but sometimes concept artists, they do look at this kind of stuff and they say they base it off real stuff. But a lot of the times it's just a gestural thing or a rough thing. So we kind of have to go in and say, okay, so is there something on this planet Earth that looks like this, or we can take and bend into looking like the concept. So like these turtle shells here, for instance, were done for the back scales of Godzilla.
Let me see if I can pull this.
Oh, you got it there.
Yeah, but this is the concept model, so.
But talking about the zoo, yes, there is a few zoos in the UK. There's one called Amazing Animals, where you can go and photograph animals, and we do that a lot, actually. We did that for Godzilla, done it for Jungle Book. Most of the films that where we don't, maybe, I mean, we are starting to have a bigger library of animals, or green screen shoots of animals moving around, or high-res photography, polarized, non-polarized photo shoots, and so on. But
here you can see a little bit of the. I should put a flat color.
So these are some of the design changes that might happen at MPC, because sometimes maybe the concept is a bit loose, or it wasn't really finalized in that area. So we have to kind of go in and sculpt it up and basically make it more real. So we base it on real stuff. I think this is the final model as well, right? This is the final model with all the maps applied and everything.
Yeah, it's applied. It's not maybe.
You got a question here on the floor.
Yeah.
So for these very organic sort of characters that you guys are doing, are you predominantly like staying out of symmetry and like just doing all your sculpts asymmetrically?
I barely can hear.
No, not the sculpting. Like it's modeled symmetric. Like the topology is symmetrical. Then we add asymmetry into the topology, but the sculpting is always asymmetrical.
Yeah, it depends really. Like on a creature like this.
A massive creature like this would have asymmetry. Like, maybe if it's a smaller background thing, then to save time you make stuff symmetrical.
Yeah.
Maybe I should pull.
Or I mean, you start sculpting it symmetrically from the beginning, but you might add this asymmetry later. But a lot of the stuff is also based on shots. So a lot of the times we get a storyboard in, or we get some sort of animatic or some rough idea of how the shots are going to be. Nowadays, though, a lot of the times these animatics are very rough, so that means that suddenly you might have been working on something like this, and they say, you know what, we're going to have a shot of the front teeth, full screen. So at that point, you have to adapt and say, so maybe at that point you say, okay, maybe the two front teeth, we didn't do them asymmetrically in the beginning, so it kind of gets based on per shot basis on how it's seen basically in shot.
Yeah. This was also one of the mood boards. This is also super high res. It's just more reference.
Yeah, so lots of crocodiles, lizards, turtles, anything dragon-like.
I was going to open up the final topology.
It's also important for scales, how scales they go from smaller to bigger, how they flow across the animal, because that kind of stuff was not done in the original concept sculpts.
Okay, let's go back to ZBrush.
What do you want to pull up?
the final topology. We can start talking about topology.
Oh yeah, the topology, yeah.
Where is that one?
So yeah, again, topology was done on this one. It was led from London, but it was mainly done by our super talented guys in Bangalore.
Yeah.
Who are really awesome.
I mean, the topology, I don't think ZBrush existed at the time.
No, it came out.
But even so, like, if
Later.
we look at, because every scale here is, like, properly modeled in with...
To get the proper depth, the
Yeah,
proper
with-
subsurface scattering, and
with thickness.
lighting.
And if you look at let's go back to the concept model. Like, everything is there. You see, everything is the same on the outside, but it doesn't really have proper depth so that's one of the things, we have to do. We have to, polish it more, basically.
You can also see on this one, there's quite a lot of artifacts on that leg there.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of little, I don't know if it's scan errors or what it is, but
I mean, this is a great start. Like,
this is
you
one of the better ones that we've done.
Yeah, you have everything here, everything
Yeah.
you need. You just need to improve it. You need to cut in these scales and, add surface detail that
Yeah.
makes sense and so on. Let me look at this one. Yeah, we were talking about the UDIMs before. Let's have a look.
Oh, yeah.
So I think this is sort of
This is sort of it, right?
it, yeah.
I think there was more, though. This is maybe how it was split up, right?
I mean, the whole one with like ice and everything was about 80 UDIMs.
yeah. I think the final polygon count on this one was what? 500K?
Yeah. So this is
Yeah,
just the body.
500,000.
This doesn't have the nails and
Yeah.
toenails and stuff. But
We then,
yeah.
a lot of the times, we do have different
LODs,
lots,
yeah.
is it called? It's basic level of detail. So this is the final, so we have LODA, a level of detail A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it can go all the way down. And all those, I mean, a lot of the times you can model something that is a lower resolution than just subdivide it up and reproject in ZBrush. That's been done a lot now. I mean, I personally do a lot on the creatures I do. But I think this one was modeled, hardcore modeled, right on top of the LODA.
Yeah.
And then we do a B, C, D, E for other departments. So a lot of the times, rigging, they need a lower resolution mesh.
Yeah, and effects. You saw those shots where there's like dust and smoke, and
Yeah.
for them to run their simulations, that this mesh is too heavy, so they need a lower
Resolution mesh, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's something our modeling department also does. And that's something you don't always realize. So once all the cool stuff is done, you're sculpting, you have to retopo and you have to resculpt, but then there's a lot of technical stuff that has to be done after, once all the fun stuff is done. And that is usually what takes the longest time. Because a lot of departments have specific requirements, or can we have the topology running in this way, or can we have the topology running that way for rigging, or blend shapes, or etc.
Cool. Should we move into this?
Here's a question here on the floor.
Yep.
You're right in the spot. It's right between the lights. I didn't even see it. Sorry.
How many polys was the final Godzilla in total?
The
Sorry?
final model.
Final model. How many polygons?
Yeah, I think 400,000, 500,000.
Yeah, this
something
is
like
the
that.
final, except it's missing the.
No, he's talking final, completely done, detailed one.
Oh.
How many millions do you know?
I mean, the thing is, you can't really do that because if you have to subdivide a model like that, you'd need billions.
I mean,
Billions of polygons, and
I can pull up the. Let's.
yeah, but that's with applied maps. So basically, what we've done is a little bit of cheat today. Is that we've taken the final head, and we've then applied the final maps that were sculpted. I mean, yeah, you can break it down and say maybe ZBrush. If you have an arm or a head or something, we cut it off, and it might go to 15 million, 20 million. Nowadays, we'd probably subdivide it more because of 64-bit, but back then it was like that. So you can say the head was 15 million, but that's not what you see in the film. So there's a lot of post-process being done in Nuke. We do a lot of stuff in Mari, a lot of kind of taking the color map and using that to drive finer, higher frequency displacement. So ZBrush is usually done for low to medium frequency displacement. So final polygon for low to medium frequency is 15 million. But then if you want to have all the high frequency on, you would need, like billions. for the whole
There's
creature.
another question back here. In the back corner. Follow my light over here, Klaus.
Sorry?
If you worked on Godzilla 2, would you reuse any of these assets or start from scratch?
No, I don't think. Yeah, I think that would be started from scratch.
If what we were working on what, sorry?
Godzilla 2, like if,
Oh, the Godzilla 2?
yeah, if there's a remake, there's always, maybe reuse parts of it, but like pretty much rebuild it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it depends because a lot of the time that film also would have, I mean, you can't just, it depends, I guess, on the film, right? But a lot of the times these films, there's something different about the creature. Maybe it's from a different period or it's been in a fight or something like that. So there will be something different about it. Could this be used as a starting point? Probably. But there's always stuff you can do better, or you also have to realize that the film came out in 2013 now, or 14, I think it was. And let's say Godzilla 2 was awarded, it would come out maybe 2017. So you got a couple of years in between there, and people want to kind of see better stuff. We always look back at our stuff and say, what could we have done better? What could have been sculpted better? What could have been rendered better? Did this look all right in the shot, and so on? Not that
So
to say
somebody
the final film didn't
asked
look
how
bad.
heavy, so this is one of the tools for the legs. So what is it? 9, 10?
10 mil?
Yeah, and this is about 2 UDIMs.
So that's a part of the leg.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's 9.7 million.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what we were talking about before, like getting enough resolution. So this is sort of, we didn't split up every UDIM, but as you see, it's 2 UDIMs with a bit of overlap there. Cool.
And I think a lot of the brushes you used was just, a lot of the stuff was just standard brushes, right? Clay
Yeah.
build-up and
Yeah.
dam standards and stuff like that.
I mean, I started to try to recreate what I did. So I would, and how I would layer it up.
Oh, yeah, so that would be a retoppered model we would get back from Bangalore.
Yeah,
And then at that point, you would then reproject the scan back onto the model.
yeah. We could take a look at the.
Sorry.
So this is the. Yeah, that's
But
the
then,
concept.
yeah.
Concept of, and like we did reproject parts where it's a little bit more detailed. Like for this part, for instance, you can start with reprojecting. We did it for parts of the face. But then for other parts, like the leg here, for example, it
Still
might
layer.
not be. I mean, you don't get, if you have the topology already.
It's enough
You're
to...
not gonna get that much out of reprojecting stuff, so it might be worth just resculpting
it.
from scratch. And for this guy, we didn't extract different displacement. We just baked everything to one displacement, but you still work in layers. Like I don't know what I did here, but yeah, I mean, it's still worth working in layers. And then, you make a daily, maybe the supervisor says, yeah, I like this, I like the general thing, but that sort of tiny, that frequency detail, don't really like. If I have it on a layer, just turn it off. Or if you want to crank it up, I'll just duplicate the layer and so on. But most of this, the most important one is like the base layer, like, it shouldn't be that one.
You got a question here on the floor?
Yeah.
Hey, my question is, what percentage of the final displacement was created in ZBrush, and what percentage was maybe using the texturing detail from Mari and other softwares, and how much you went back and forth between processes to create the final displacements?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, for Godzilla, we did sculpt. It's a massive creature, so we did have to sculpt stuff like that, sharpening all the edges and getting rid of all the the CG roundness and everything. So there was a lot of sculpting for Godzilla. Then it goes back to texturing. Like, we texture, it's all in parallel. I'll show you. Let's see.
I think, major parts was done in ZBrush. I mean, the major forms, the major
Yeah.
sculpt parts.
You get stuff like that, but then
Yeah.
you send it back. then also there's changes. So I actually have a daily of
80, I would say probably maybe 70 to 80% was probably done in ZBrush with all the sculpting, all the scales,
yeah.
doing all the low frequency, mid frequency stuff. But that's not saying that the other part is not important, because it's all important. You can't say, oh, you know, the ZBrush is 80% of it, but because in the end,
there's a lot of coming from texturing, obviously.
Exactly.
And then there's also changes after. You know, if you like this, we started sculpting, and then the color changed. They start getting feedback on the color, and they want to change the color. So this is one of those dailies that we have to resculpt based on the color. You see all these. So like in the first version, we didn't have that, and then they go, but yeah, like this is the first version.
Yeah.
Then you improve it based on the color.
And that's going back again to saying that the concept artist who did this or sculpted this maquette maybe didn't take into consideration a final color design, or, you know, because in the end we're going to project from polarized reference that we shoot on set, and then we have to rework it. So this was one of the things that I remember when we were in daily sessions, that the supervisor didn't like, that the color was different from the sculpt.
Yeah.
So we had to go in and basically resculpt a lot of the parts, basically most of the creature, leg, chest, arms, to match it, to line up with the color, the scales that was projected from the color.
Here's a question from online digital. When you're splitting the model into the parts like you did and subdividing for high-res sculpting, how do you avoid the seams when you're doing the displacements?
So
yeah, there is always seams. Like you do it like you subdivide it like this, and then you crease it. But if you zoom in enough, there's always gonna be seams, and then you have to paint it out in Mari.
It's about hiding them in smart places.
Yeah.
The good thing about Godzilla was that he has a lot of scales. So
yeah.
a lot of the topology was done modeling around inside the scale, so we could kind of hide the seams that way.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times,
but there was some painting out seams for Godzilla.
But you'd also do some sort of overlap, right?
Yeah, we tried that too. But so we tried, you know, having a UDIM and then growing that one a little bit, and then in ZBrush projecting whatever you sculpted on the other C tool, but in the end, it's you have to paint out seams.
Basically, you'd have, yes, two C tools. You might have the arm, lower arm and upper arm, but what you do is you, when you split it, you might take a couple of extra rows of polygons for each one, so they kind of overlap. And then whatever you sculpt up on that one to that edge, and whatever you sculpt on the other tool on that edge, you overlay those two, and then you blend them out with a mask. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't really work. I mean, a lot of the seams in the end were cleaned up in Mari.
We got a floor question here, right in the front.
So for animation, there's a lot of skin movement and stuff. Do you know if there was rigidity maps so the scales could stay stiff and then everything around them shift, or?
Maybe pull up the motion range thing. Yeah. So we have one daily here where the director wanted to show Garrett, the director, he wanted to show the range of motion for Godzilla. And this would then be done as a test.
That's lagging a bit, but.
And yeah, we would have weight maps, basically rigging. We have a fairly complicated rigging system where, depending on
there's a lot of stuff going on here, like the jiggle, and you know they have muscle layers underneath, and
yes, depending on the motion that Godzilla does, we might get some black and white masks that you then say you can use this white mask, like this data, you can then use to say I want more stretch there, less stretch there. But this creature, like wherever you had the scales, it had to be rigid, of course. So a lot of maps were painted.
I think you can see a little bit of that hair, like it's like moving a little bit.
In the face.
Not uniform. It's like.
And you guys didn't use any HD geometry on him, right? It was all just normal geometry.
It was all just.
I don't think I've ever used HD geometry in real, because you can't use layers really, can you, in HD geometry? So that's,
I think it's
Oh, can you? Can you
Yeah.
use layers? Can you use layers now?
Sure, you could.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't really have to with HD.
Hi there. You were talking about having to change the sculpting with the colors.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, I've never done that after painting coming back yet. So I was just wondering, did you guys basically just import the color map and then find where the big discrepancies were and just started from there, or where was
Yeah.
your kind of process? Just that?
Like that one was quite specific. It was just they added scales where there were no scales before. So you just load the color map and you sculpt scales on top of the colors where it is.
But yeah, you would isolate the arm or something. I mean, in the end, it would take a little bit of setup time. So yeah, you would apply, you know, if you have an arm, for instance, you then isolate that part of the, let's say you have the nails, you then isolate the nails, apply the color map for just that, move on to the next one, apply it for that one, move on to the next one, apply and apply and apply. You do that however many times and however many UDEMs you have. It takes a bit of setup, but once
I mean,
it's set up,
that's
it's
quite
set up.
common, but like for this one, it was only the legs and foot, so it's fine. But if it's a whole character, you know, like if it is quite common that we use, you know, sculpt something based off the color, but it can be a bit tricky to do in ZBrush sometimes because it's not the easiest to load all color maps. And
But nowadays,
if on a creature like this with 80 UDIMs.
Yeah. I mean, back then, now actually for Jungle Book, because we're doing this a lot, we have a lot of creatures, I think around 80 characters on that one. Most of them need speaking and, full LODA, full screen characters. So some guy wrote a script at MPC to have multiple imports. So we have this, you can basically just load in this one, and let's say it has 50 UDIMs, and you go in a folder and you name the files a specific thing, and it will automatically load it in. So that's a great thing sometimes about working in a department-based studio, is that you have a lot of support from other artists, or we have a lot of software guys that say, if we need something, or if there's something that we're feeling, oh, can we have a tool for this or a script for that, or sometimes, I mean, we do it ourselves, but a lot of the times we can ask for this stuff, and it will usually, I mean, if it's something that everybody needs, or it will get scripted up or coded up basically and made it into a tool.
Yeah.
So that makes it a bit easier.
How are we doing on time? Maybe we should get Arnold going.
Should we get Arnold
you got
going?
about, I'd say 25 minutes.
25 minutes. I can do
that's
something really
actually-
quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
While you guys are switching, here's a question from Twitter. How many different custom alpha sets did you use to basic alpha sets?
Custom what?
Custom alpha sets on him.
Oh yeah, we did a lot of custom alphas because we had, like I said, we had a texture shoot from a turtle and a crocodile. So we did, I don't know how many alphas there were, but yeah, we had.
Depends a bit on the artist, I think, how many they want.
we had like a set that we shared, but then you always make your own alphas as well. Like when I make alphas, I'm not super fussed about it. I do like quick and dirty alphas, and then just to get the general pattern or whatever, and then I sculpt on top of that. Whereas some people like to make more precise alphas that, is perfect when you, like I don't know. It's just a different way of working.
When we have a big alpha library though at MPC,
We do
so
that too,
whenever somebody makes something, or if it's a good one, it will usually be put in a folder, and we have scales, skin, bolts, nuts, anything basically. But we also try to, I think on this one, we also used to try and buy a lot of, there's a lot of websites out there like Surfic Mimic, XYC, RGB, a lot of scan websites that are selling real scans that they've done of, let's say, crocodile skin or whatever. And we try to buy a lot of that stuff and make them into usable, tileable alphas or anything like that. Going into that, maybe I can show a bit of the Arnold stuff. So I was lead character artist on Arnold for Terminator Genesis. And I'm just going to play the final shots here first. There's no sound on this one, unfortunately, so I'm just going to talk over it.
Maybe you should move the mouse.
Yeah, I'm just going to scroll a little bit. And these were, so basically the brief was that we need to recreate the the 1984 Arnold Schwarzenegger as he was seen in the first Terminator film. And I remember this voice coming down to me and saying, so we need to do this and that, and okay, cool. So, I mean, we've done DT doubles before at MPC, but he said, no, but this one is naked, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it needs to match the original film. Okay, and it needs to be talking. So a lot of challenges comes into mind when you're doing something like that. When you have to, talk about, let me move this one. Yeah, a lot of challenges comes into mind when you have to think about something like this or do an asset like this. Same as Godzilla, they had tons of UDIMs, lots of displacement layers, and so on. And the problem with this one is also he's a known actor and everybody kind of knows who Arnold looks like. So, and the problem we had was, I'm just going to skip through this. The problem we had no high-res photography, no scans. Well, we had some sort of scan, I'll show you in a minute, but if you had to do an actor, fully digital actor nowadays, like Weta did for, the last Fast and Furious. For that one, of course, you have some sort of scan data, or you have high-res photography, or stuff like that. You can basically, but this one here, you can't, we didn't have anything basically. So it was all going and looking at old footage, looking at reference and Arnold. Of course, there's thousands of images of Arnold, but you know, I mean, a lot of the high-res ones are from nowadays. So back in the 80s, you didn't have so much high-res photography, unfortunately. Yeah. Just gonna let it play a bit here. So yeah, this was some of the final shots. This was the sequence we had to do, basically. So roughly 4 minutes long. Fighting. It's a bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen the film, by the way. Lots of different assets as well. So here he gets his face. Well, I can stop it here. I mean, he has a little bit of... it's a bit hard for you to see up there, I guess. He has a bit of bullet holes down here. His face is kind of cut off up here. Lots of blend shapes. Most of them were started or touched up in ZBrush.
That was a CG hand.
And that was, by the way, a CG hand there. Also done up, sculpted in ZBrush and so on. And boom. No, God. Cool. And then it gets a bit cheesy, I think, here at the end, where he gets up and says, "Proved."
Good job.
And so, what reference did we had? I'm just going to go a little bit quickly through it here because I don't have a lot of time, but I can open up ZBrush and I can show you, if we go away from this one. So I've got some reference, scans. So what we got is that we had a scan of a mold that they done for the 1984 film. Not sure where this is done, where this was used in the film or whatever, but we got this one. So a lot of times you get, when you do actors or digidoubles nowadays, you get some sort of scan or some sort of at least reference model or whatever. So this was the one we got from here. I mean, it's good for general proportions and you can kind of see that it's Arnold, but of course there's a lot missing. I mean, of course the back of a head, there's full body. no teeth, eyes are closed, and this was also him putting his face into some sort of mold. So the nose we found out later on, were not correct, and I mean, this basically needs to be totally resculpted. You can kind of use it for general proportions of cheekbones, maybe nose, and this kind of stuff, but we then lined this one up to a film plate of the old here. So we kind of lined it up. This is the final model, more or less, that kind of worked in the shots, but this is what you would do. And the problem about this one is that you don't have any data from this, so it's basically all distorted film plates, and you have to take into consideration, I mean, we didn't even know the focal length of these shots, so we were kind of guess maybe this is 100 millimeter, 120 millimeter, something like that. You don't know. 35 millimeter, these ones, or you don't know basically. So a lot of the time we would load them in. This was all done in Maya, and then lined up to cameras, and we would go back and forth between ZBrush, Maya, ZBrush, Maya, ZBrush, Maya. Yeah. And this was basically done for just lining up to the whole Terminator film here, Terminator 1. This took a long time to do. So once that was done, we were kind of starting to sculpt the final model. Let me see if I can load in the final model here. So this was the final model that was done, and I think I have.
This is the high-res one.
So yeah, this is the high-res one, and what this one because basically the problem is you had to see it like this, as in the shot we saw before, plus you saw him from kind of mid-distance, you saw him from here, you saw him from far away. So when you do an asset like that, like we talked about with Godzilla, you can't really hide anything. The only thing I knew that was not going to be shown was, of course, that part and the feet. So anytime there was some sort of feet or lower leg, I knew it was going to be a stunt double. But anytime we saw arms, hands, upper body, face, or whatever, it was going to be a fully digital model. Let me see if it doesn't line up here, but basically, so this was the more or less final sculpt of the face, and just like, and this is the density that was used. This was done, so a lot of the time we would get facial performance, so we get weight maps off, or we do high-res blend shapes and so on. We also modeled in the lips. Don't know if a bit overkill, but we did it.
For the hands as well, right?
Yeah, for the hands. Also for the wrinkles around the arm there. So when he was lifting his arms, the wrinkles would kind of smooth out, and when he was bending them down, the wrinkles would appear again. Because this was a very important thing to kind of get a tight look around here. And the same with the hands. This was modeled in, so when he was bending his fingers and so on, all that kind of stuff was articulating and properly working, basically. We also had different lots on this one, so you have the high-res one here, lower-res, and the low-res. So what we did is that this was the final topology that was done and then subdivided a couple of times.
How much is the high one again?
So the high one is 1 million.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can kind of see down here. Maybe show the hands where the model in the wrinkles and so on, and proper flow. And we use a very at MPC we use a very grid-based topology. So a lot of I mean this kind of stuff was specific for Arnold, but we don't normally do this on any digitables. And we have some sort of musculature modeled in, like the basic, maybe it's better to show here, but you kind of have the trapezius modeled in, and the general spine. The back muscles are flowing correctly, but other than that, it's fairly grid-based everywhere. And that's because we had a fairly advanced muscle simbric on this one. And the rigging department, they like a more grid-based, because that means that you don't model in too many details or high-res muscles, so it can all deform very nicely and be kept organic. Another thing with this one also is, if I just go on here, another thing we had to be taken care of was proper thickness to ears. So if I just go. So the ears had proper thickness in the right parts for the subsurface scattering, and that was done, the whole model was done in ZBrush. All the anatomy was sculpted in here and so on, and all this kind of stuff was done with also a lot of the times using the, I don't have that one right now, but the ghost view. Let me just load my config here. Oops. Yeah, so, yeah, a lot of, sorry?
What about the teeth?
Yeah, those two. So yeah, a lot of the times we kind of, this is a very helpful view in here, so you can kind of see where the eyes are. We can get proper thickness for the eyelids and so on. Same with teeth. I think if I just do a quick polygroup, UV group. So all the teeth were modeled in properly for when he was speaking. We thought at some point we were going to see the mouth more open, but in the end it was quite dark and moody, the final shots. But in theory, you have to prepare for any kind of any shot basically when it's brief like that. And that's also what the client are paying for. So, but yeah, this was the final topology. So in the end, we cut in all the holes for the teeth, for proper subsurface scattering and so on. And same with these ones were properly modeled and everything, based off some sort of real reference and scan, of course. And the front one's a bit more high because we had some extra displacement stuff on these ones. Same with the eyes, I think was done same way. Cool.
Do you have the eye shapes?
The eye shapes.
Do you have eye daily?
I don't actually. But I can talk a little bit about, really quickly here, the models, reference, scan. This was the body scan we got from, of the stunt double. Brett Azar. And like I said, so anytime it was anything here, it was him. Plate but as you can see, this is kind of one of the bad scans that we get sometimes. I mean, I don't know who the vendor was on this show, but I mean, sometimes I'm not sure if this is a cyber scan or some sort of photogrammetry or whatever, but you can see that it would be a lot of cleanup. I did pose the final, if I go here and append. So we have a normal MPC human, as it's called, a standard human figure we use for everything. And I would then use this guy to pose just really quickly in ZBrush, use the transpose master or something like that, and then line it up to the scan there, basically. What I then do is take that into Maya, and I have the lower one here, and we have a set of transfer UVs that is then going to get transferred over to this guy, which is the LODA version, the high-res version. And then I bring that one in here, and then that's lined up to the scan, and then you project the scan back on, and there you go. So it doesn't take that long. It takes half a day or something like that, maybe a day to do. And then you have something matching to a scan. So I did use this guy as a starting point for Arnold, but he was, maybe I can gather in here. Delete these guys. So he was used as a initial starting point, especially for the legs and so on. But in the end, we kind of had to cater it and totally change his chest and the width of that part here, of his upper body. Also, upper torso here was way wider than Brett. Also, in this pose here, he seems to be flexing. So the one over here, a lot of I was really keen to go in the beginning and model, all the details and doing all the wrinkles and everything like this. But we can't really do that because a lot of the time that has to be driven through the rig. So as he's performing in the scene, so we had, for instance, curves laid out for these ones here, so they would trigger on certain occasions. And same with the abs and the chest muscles here. They would also trigger in basically a fully simmed guy. I think if I import, we had some basic blend shapes model as well.
Here's a digital question for you, more about the life at MPC. What is the average workload like at MPC? Is it normally 8 hours a day, and how do you manage your work and life balance?
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be 8 hours, right?
It's supposed to be 8 hours.
But that's not always the case. Well, never the case, maybe.
What do you make of it, I think?
Yeah.
So it's a lot longer than 8 hours usually.
Well, yeah, I mean, depends. Like sometimes you're in crunch time, right?
Yeah.
Just have to get stuff out, and then
like
so when you're in crunch time, do you work on the weekends and everything too? Then
weekends, yeah. I think,
It depends.
I think I had 6 days off last year. But it depends. Like this year has been fine. Right? Yeah.
I think it's how you manage your time as well. I think a lot of the better artists, they know when to go home, and we do have people who sit, long hours and everything, but personally, it's not something I'm a big fan of. I like my 8 hours, 9 hours a day, go home and chill, and then come back to work. Because I think you don't want to get burned out, and that's why it's a very young industry, because I see a lot of people come in, work for a couple of years, then they're out because they kill themselves, and you don't want to do that kind of stuff. And that goes for any company, MPC, whatever you work for.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was the flex shapes that was done. So a pair of flex shapes is basically one big blend shape that we do. And that kind of gets put on the whole thing, and then, like I spoke about earlier with Godzilla, that's been driven through these trigger maps. So you can kind of see here that certain muscles are being triggered and moved up and so on. You got the calf muscles moving up. Got a little bit of butt flex, and he's dancing, exactly. A little bit of flexing there, and we kind of have to take care of any situation with this. So, a lot of this kind of stuff would get triggered through the rig, basically.
I wish you could do that instead of going in the gym. Where's that button from my body? Boom, in shape. Boom, dad shape. Boom, sports shape.
So I think if I try to append, load the final model here, how much memory do I have my final? So skin texturing was, of course, a big thing as well. How much time do we have?
You got like 15 minutes.
15 minutes, cool. I'm just blazing through it here. I'm just trying to load a tool. So I did try to load the final tool with all the maps, just so you can get an idea of how more or less a final asset looks like. Yes, so I mean we did have, what do we have? Blend shapes. We had an eye daily here actually. So this was some of the detail we kind of went into as well. This was the eye model that we had, and we had, because there's that one shot where he turns his head, and let me just pull it up actually. You can see it next to this. So there's that one shot where he turns his head, and we thought we were going to see the eye way more, so we went in and sculpted basically the iris and everything, which was not that one, but this one. So in this shot here, we thought that once that iris there hits, you can kind of see, hits the light there, we thought that we're going to see it shrink a bit, and you could see the muscle contraction of the eye muscle. So we did a bit of a sculpting on that based off some Disney research papers that they released around that time. So that's kind of just another ZBrush thing here. So just doing a bit of an iris contraction here. And I believe this one was the released model, and then the rest was displaced. And then, of course, we had higher frequency fibers on top of this. This was just like the base, basically. But this maybe shows what the kind of detail we go into sometimes with some of the builds. All shot dependent as well. I would never have done this if that shot hadn't been there, for instance. Let's see if ZBrush is done loading. Oh yeah, so just load the material here. So this is kind of how the final asset looked like. I mean, we did have a little bit higher res maps, because a lot of them are 32-bit, and I can only import 16-bit into ZBrush, of course. But this is kind of the level of detail that we went to with the face. So all the pores were done, and of course a matching. If I go back to against reference, let me just pull up the reference. So we had a lot of reference dailies done. Again, it's fairly low res stuff. There is a couple of, this was the film we had to match in the end. So we had to match this age, this haircut, these eyebrows, these wrinkles he had at this time. But we did go and had a look at other reference dailies, which I'm just going to try and pull up here. Thanks. Yeah, I don't have that here actually. Against reference, shots, complex shift, topology. That's all right. But we had, I mean, I can show this one a little bit. We scoured the internet for any high-res photography of anything any sort of skin texturing for bodybuilders we could find, or kind of buffed guys. So this is the kind of stuff, some of the stuff we had a look at. We did have a photo shoot done as well. So of course you can see all the wrinkles and these kind of things. And I felt that this guy had a fairly similar skin type to Arnold. So a lot of times it's also looking at that quite smooth skin with, not many heavy wrinkles, basically. Kind of the right age as well. Let me, if I go back to ZBrush, and that's kind of, I'm going to show a little trick maybe here that I sometimes do to do the right, get the right skin texturing. So if I open up these in Photoshop, so a lot of the times we get some sort of photo shoot done of an actor. Not in this case because, of course, Arnold's not the right age. I mean, we did get a photo shoot of him actually, but it was not, it's not usable. So I based my skin reference of the face of basically all plates or any photography that we could find. However, I did. I did use a little bit of. Oh, crash. Oh, no, quick save off.
No, I think you turned it off.
No, it's on. It's going to turn off the quick save here for a second. If I If I load this one here and I just turn off the... So this is kind of the displacement sculpting that was done. And a lot of the times you only have to do a head, but in this case we had to do basically a full body. So the skin texturing was done basically on the full body. I did initially lay it out in Mari and then do bring it into ZBrush and do some of the lower and mid-frequency sculpting underneath. And I think if we can just maybe focus a bit on the head here. So yeah, a lot of these wrinkles here would match what he had at that age. Same with these pores that are flowing this way here. The same up here, these ones, these little extra pimples and so on he had there was all matching his, and the same with the lip layout was lined up to dailies.
What were you using to do all the skin texturing? Just by hand sculpting, a lot of alphas?
We use Surface Mimic as a base, but I would hand sculpt a lot of the flow and a lot of the stuff around the eyes. I mean, all the wrinkles here, all the lips, everything was done by hand. Also the neck was done by hand. Honestly, a lot of it was done by hand, but I'd use Surface Mimic or any sort of scan data or textures or anything we had in the library as a base. Let me see if Photoshop is wanting to open. I don't think so. Just give me a second. Which was one of the tricks I was going to show here. Because a lot of the times we would get, like I said, not on this one, but a lot of the times on some projects we would get polarized reference and non-polarized reference. So to those people who don't know, if you have a camera and a polarizer in front of a lens basically kills any sort of highlights or lighting information that you would have, like specular or anything shiny. So it's very, very good to capture skin properly.
I got a question on the floor here for you.
Yeah.
One of the things that makes those shots look so great is the skin shader, of course. You guys are showing a lot of displacement maps, and I think like maybe the main diffuse map. Are you making other maps for the texture or the shader guys that have to go into the pipe? And do you guys have a custom thing going on? I'm assuming you probably have some custom shaders you're working with, and is that a part of the pipe that's all smoothed out and you guys have to participate in as well?
Yes, we had, we use RenderMan. So RenderMan 19 just came out, RIS, which is their new architecture, their new path tracer, and we used that one for actually the first show on MPC that used that one, so it was a bit scary. It's a bit scary always jumping from a new render system, basically. But we used that, their skin shader, which was great. So it was a multi-layered one, just like you find in Arnold or V-Ray or anything, so a 3-layer system. And I didn't really paint any other maps, because the way the skin shader works, that it basically, you put in the diffuse and then just your normal albedo, which is this. So you just put this one in and it will automatically figure out how to do the color transitions in between in the different layers when the light hits. But I did paint, of course, lots of isolation maps, our masks. So for the ears, nose, lips, whatever, arms and everything all over the body, for them to control the specular in different ways. We painted a lot of specular maps. I actually painted all these in ZBrush using just the poly paint, because in Mari you have to project, but I like to paint straight onto the model. So a lot of those masks were painted in poly paint, and then using the multi-map extractor up here just to texture from poly paint, and then extract that one straight as 8K or whatever, 4K or whatever you want. So a lot of those maps were painted straight in here, black and white. It's pretty simple. But I did paint the specular maps in here as well. So a lot of the roughness maps, maybe it's more rough on the forehead, less rough on the lips and the nose and so on. So they were also painted in here. Let me just see if I can pull up this thing here. So really quickly, this is a quick way of, if you have a photo shoot that has a polarized and a non-polarized image of a person. So this is for Godzilla, actually. This is the Aaron Taylor Johnson who played the lead character. Feel free to ask any questions while I'm just fiddling around with this.
So how many artists were involved in the Arnold modeling, the texturing, the blend shaping process?
Oh, there was roughly a team of maybe, at some point it was me and another guy, Ashley Tilley, who was the main modeler on the show. I did most of the sculpting and the kind of ZBrushy skin stuff, and I did the initial anatomy and so on of the body. But he went in later on and basically did more technical modeling, all the blend shaping, and led that. Sorry?
Topology.
He did topology. He did and he finished off with doing actually the final head, because we had an initial head in the beginning of Arnold, but we found out later on that once you get them into the shot and we need to start matching and so on to the final plates, he was not totally correct. So he did the final changes of that. I think on a team we had a couple of blend shape guys, an animator, look dev artists, and so on. Maybe a team of 10 at any given point. No, I can't show this.
The hard drive's too full.
Yeah, it's too full. So unfortunately.
We got to wrap her up though, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, you would get an image. You would get a photo shoot like this, and you can then use these to do a lot of. You can kind of basically see the skin without the information, and if I open this one, without the specular information and with the specular information. So you would be able to see, and if you do a difference between these two, you can definitely see exactly where you need to sculpt and so on. So this is very, very powerful. And we had a full turntable of a lot of actors like this, and I would use that a lot for reference. It was very powerful. And also, I think that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
MPC, everybody.
All right.